Dear listeners, there's a particular kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with how many hours worked this week. It's the exhaustion of performing a version of yourself that is not quite true, of leading, showing up, and succeeding. So, while some quieter part of you wonders that how long you can keep it before someone figures out you have been faking it. So, tonight, we name that experience and we find the way out of it. So, hey, dear listeners, welcome back to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Avik, and today's guest, please welcome Kurt Bush. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Avik. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Amazing, amazing. So, dear listeners, before we get into the discussion, I'll quickly introduce it, uh, our guest, Kurt. So, Kurt is a certified internal family systems practitioner, trauma informed coach, co founder of Brimstone Coaching Group, and co author of Live Fully, Lead Authentically. So, Kurt has walked through corporate leadership, pastoral ministry, and his own personal reckoning with imposter syndrome. And what he came out the other way or the other side is a deeply grounded approach to helping leaders move from exhaustion and performance into clarity, wholeness, and the kind of authenticity that actually sustains a life and a career. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Yeah, thanks.
Amazing, amazing. So, Kurt, like I want to start with your story because you didn't arrive at this work through theory, like nearly a decade in manufacturing, um, another decade leading non-profit organizations, and your own very real experience of imposter syndrome. So, for someone who has spent that much time leading, genuinely leading in high stakes, high responsibility environments, uh, what did hitting your own wall actually feel like? I mean, what was the moment you realized that surviving and thriving were not the same thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a really clear moment for me when I realized that what I was doing was unsustainable. I think there's probably two clear moments. I think what's true is leading at any level is just really, really
Mm,
hard. Um,
mm,
Leading people, leading organizations, especially in 2026, it's just hard. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of weight.
mm,
Um, and I think what was true for me is that I thought that surviving, we'll sometimes say white-knuckling life, meaning we're just holding on for dear life. We're just praying and hoping that we don't let go or we don't get thrown off the ride, if you will.
yeah.
Um, I think I just thought that was normal. I thought that's what
Mm,
adults do, or that's what it means to adult, if I can use that as a verb. Uh,
yeah.
and I think there was a moment where I realized that wasn't true. I think the first moment is I had a coach myself nearly 7 or 8 years ago, and I reached out to this coach in a time of particular exhaustion.
Mm,
I was leading a group of people, and I couldn't get the group to do what I wanted it to do. I couldn't get the group to make progress, and I called my coach, and I essentially uh, um, I essentially ranted or vented to him and said, "What is wrong with these people?" And my coach, very gently, very kindly, asked me, "Kurt, what part are you playing in this situation?" And my initial response was, "I don't know if you heard me. I just told you how bad these people are doing." Uh,
yeah.
and and he wouldn't let me go on that. He asked again, "What part are you playing?" And I think that's what when I realized first that I have some agency in how I show up and how I lead. That
Mm,
when I'm feeling like I can't get a group to do what I want it to do, like I play a part of that. Um, and I need to start looking at my part in that.
Mm,
Uh, the other thing that stands out to me, I got a master's degree late in life. I was in my 30s when I went back to get my master's degree,
mhm,
and it was an online program. And
mhm,
what I realized is every time I would turn in a paper, I would have this sinking feeling that that paper was going to be the paper that my professor realized that I didn't belong.
mm,
That's that sort of imposter syndrome. And it was only a semester or 2 in that I realized that that's an unsustainable feeling for me. That that if
mm,
I'm going to get through a master's program, if I'm going to thrive, I need to start doing the work to believe that I belonged, or believe that I could do the work,
mm,
and that I wasn't going to be found out at every single turn. So I think those
mm.
2 moments really were turns for me to realize, like, man, I am not thriving. I am surviving, but just
Yeah,
barely.
exactly. Mhm. Exactly true. So I have to say the person who teaches this most powerfully is almost always the person who needed it most urgently as well.
Mm,
And uh, I would say that lived reckoning is the whole difference between advice and wisdom.
mm,
So yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And like you have said something that I think is both simple and devastating. Like most leaders are not thriving; they're surviving,
Mhm,
and that the posture of faking it till you make it kind of thing is not only tolerated but actively rewarded by the organizations and the culture.
mhm.
So here, what is the most dangerous myth that leaders carry about what high performance is supposed to feel like, and what does it cost them that they are not even aware that they are paying? What do you say?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love the way you framed that question. And I love the way you frame it in the sense that organizations and culture rewards this sort of surviving. That's a really brilliant way to frame that. I think maybe the most dangerous, maybe isn't the right word. I think one of the most costly myths is that leaders can't slow down. Um, One of the things that we believe really deeply in our coaching practice is that reflection and the ability to slow down and reflect on how we're showing up and how we're leading, that reflection really is sort of the secret sauce to growth and to maturing and to transformation. But I think there's a myth that says if I'm a leader and I slow down at all, I'm going to get buried, or I'm going to get left behind, or I'm going to get seen as weak. That slowing down equals weakness, and I think in this sort of leadership culture that we find today, most prominently, is that weakness is the thing to be avoided at all costs. That having limits, having needs, having the want to slow down or reflect, that's actually seen as weakness. So I think the myth that I see most in our clients that they believe is
Mm.
that if I slow down, I'm gonna lose my I'm gonna lose my progress, I'm gonna lose my, my quote, "spot at the table," or I'm gonna be seen as weak.
Understood. Yeah, definitely. And imposter syndrome, especially because you have lived it and you coach
Mm,
it. Um,
yeah.
so there's a version of imposter syndrome that people know about, like the fear of being found out, the feeling of what to say, like the feeling of not deserving the role. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but is there a deeper, quieter version that is even harder to name it? I mean, one that doesn't go away when even when the success is obvious and the credentials are real.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good question too. I mean, I think in general, if we're dealing with real imposter syndrome, results
Mm,
will never get it to go away. Um, I know some really, really successful leaders that will say to me, I fear being found out. So I think
mm,
to your point, Yeah, I'm not sure it ever goes away. I think there is a quieter version, actually. And I think that's one that's rooted in this idea that that we don't belong. Because I think being found out and not belonging are two different things. Um, the fear of being found out, I think, is rooted in this idea that I'm trying my best, and I'm at risk of being found out, even though I'm trying my best. I think not belonging, I think it's a little different in the sense that it implies that I've somehow ended up where I am,
Yeah.
accidentally. Um, that maybe maybe my superiors or maybe my peers, maybe they just don't know me well enough, you know? That maybe they'll find that there's been a mistake. So
Mm,
I think the subtle difference is, being found out sort of still allows me to be in the driver's seat, if you will,
mm.
whereas, not belonging makes me a passenger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense, definitely. So, like, syndrome is not always about the competence, but sometimes it's about identity and
Yes.
yeah, and about not being sure which version of you is actually real. So that's a much more intimate problem, and I'd say much more important one to solve.
100% Avik. I think you're right. I might even make I might try to make the case that imposter syndrome is actually never about
Mm.
competence. Um, I think it feels like that on the surface, but I might make the case to say that it's always more of an identity, discussion than a competence discussion.
Exactly. You have co-authored Live Fully, Lead Authentically. And the title makes a promise that I want to understand more deeply is like, uh, what does the living and leading authentically actually require of a person that feels genuinely different from how most high achievers have been taught to operate? Like, uh, I mean, not the philosophy, but the daily practice. I mean, what does it actually look like? So, I mean, you can share.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what I would say first is, we chose those words on purpose because, living and leading, they have to go together. Um, I think it's pretty popular in leadership circles to sort of, compartmentalize our lives to say, I can sort of have my leadership compartment and then my life compartment, and that those two kind of stay separate. And we would just really strongly push on that and say that, living fully and leading authentically go together because we are simply just one self. We each have one self, and we bring our life into our leading and our leading into our life. That those two things are intimately connected.
Mm.
Um, I think what it looks like. I mean, I think there's two things that jump out to me. So thanks for asking the question. I think it's a great question. The first is a willingness to be different, which is so hard. I mean, I say that and it sounds flippant, but I certainly don't want that to sound flippant to any of your listeners. There's an inherent willingness that needs to happen to say, what I've been doing, whether it's surviving or white knuckling, whatever we want to call it, whatever I've been doing is getting me the results that I'm getting, right? I worked with an engineer once in my manufacturing days that said processes are perfectly
Mhm.
designed to get the results that they get. And I think the same is true for our life. If I'm surviving, I'm going to be exhausted. If I'm faking it till I make it, as you said earlier, I'm going to feel discontent. So there has to be some willingness to say, I'm not going to do those things anymore. I'm going to try on a different practice for my life. So that's
Mhm.
first, a willingness to try on a different practice when the world around us says we don't have to or we shouldn't. The other thing I would say is this. Uh, this looks like an increased self awareness, an increased level of self
Mhm.
awareness. Um, I simply cannot, live or lead any differently until I know, how I'm living and leading today. Um, whether it's living fully or leading authentically, that begins with a level of self awareness that says, "What's so today?" and what would I like to be so tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. Mhm. So for the listeners who recognizes themselves in this conversation and wants to begin not with a coaching program necessarily, but with a genuine first step into more self-awareness today. So then, um, what would you give them?
Yeah. So I think the practice, I said this before, I'll say it again because we just believe it so
Mm,
deeply that self-reflection is probably the closest thing to a secret sauce that I give people.
mm,
Growth and transformation is a long game, Avik, and
mhm,
it's hard. Changing what we've always done is really hard, but self-reflection is the closest thing to an easy button that I can give people. I think an easy, well, I say easy, it's not easy. A first step is to carve out, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes a day. That's a pretty big chunk of time for someone who
mm,
doesn't do this regularly. But to carve out just a little bit of time in the day to pause, to take some deep breaths, to notice our feet on the ground, if you will,
mm,
and just reflect on what's gone well today, what's not gone well, how have I enjoyed how I showed up? How have I appreciated the way I showed up? How have
mm,
I showed up in ways that are maybe not aligned with who and how I want to be? One of the things that we offer clients is to think about uh, things like regret and remorse. And those are strong words, and maybe we don't mean them as strongly as they initially come across. But I think many leaders can relate with the idea that they come out of a meeting or come out of a one-on-one or whatever it is, and they feel regret or remorse. They regret, maybe they lashed out. Maybe they regret withdrawing and not speaking. Maybe they regret the way they handled themselves. Whatever that is, those are really good indicators that there's something going on in us that we're not aware of. So maybe even that's the first step. Self-reflect, give yourself 10 or 15 minutes and maybe self-reflect on those places where we feel regret or remorse.
mm. Obviously, transformation, real, deep identity level transformation is not a kind of weekend retreat and kind of, I would say, journal entry. It's a long, non-linear, and sometimes disorienting process also. Like, um, so for the leader who has started this work and then kind of hit a wall, or who keeps reverting to the old patterns under pressure, or who feels like they're just going backwards. So, what do you say to them?
Yeah, Avik, that's a great question. I feel like you and I could
Yeah,
talk about this for a long time. We're speaking the same language
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I love the way you frame this, that growth and transformation, they're not linear. It often looks like a heart monitor, right? Where there's some ups and then there's some downs. We love the concept of self-compassion, uh, because that's just really key in this work.
Mm,
This is a key practice that we have to learn so that we can, try again tomorrow.
mm,
Um, we think about it like this, that you and I, we've done the things that we do for years, maybe decades, meaning that we have responses in us as leaders that we employ, whether it's maybe it's lashing out, maybe it's withdrawing, maybe it's staying quiet when we want to speak. We've done those for decades in some cases. So the idea that we can just stop doing them overnight,
mm,
we think is a pretty small chance that none of us are going to just flip a switch overnight. So to your point, we are not surprised when clients say, I've been doing pretty good. I haven't done that thing that I do in meetings, or I haven't lashed out or whatever. I haven't done that for a while, but I did it yesterday. Um, and like we
yeah.
expect that. I don't want to say like that we are happy about that. We wish we could just do things overnight and flip a
Mm,
switch, but we can't. So we just really help our clients understand, like, have compassion on yourself,
yeah.
name it, you know, n-
Mm, Yeah, living the work alongside someone who sees you clearly, that's not just a business model, but obviously that's a form of um, accountability that keeps the inner work
Mm,
honest. So, also, I mean, for the leader who is listening right now, maybe uh, he or she can be in a car, maybe in a office after everyone else has gone home. Who knows that something important about themselves that they haven't yet been willing to fully face. So, who senses that the gap between who they are performing and who they actually are is
mhm,
quietly costing them everything that
mm.
actually matters. So, what do you want to say them to
Yeah, boy, Avik, again,
them?
thanks for the question. That's such a great question.
Yeah.
I think what I want to say to them
Yeah.
is that number one, I'm sorry that that there feels like a misalignment between who they are being and who they actually
Mhm.
are. And I think what I want to say is that it doesn't have to be that way any longer.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to stay that way. That misalignment that feels exhausting and feels like it's so costly to who and how we want to be, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to stay there. You, leader,
Mhm.
can do the work slowly and gently
Yeah.
and kindly, filled with self compassion, to bring those two selves, the perceived self of who you need to be and the
Mhm.
reality of who you are, those can come closer every day. They can come a little closer tomorrow than it is today. Um, and I think the good news is that that work is ours to do. I guess that's good news and bad news. I wish somebody could do it for me, but they can't. So it's mine to do, which means I have some agency, and there's always empowerment with agency. So
Mhm.
that gap doesn't need to stay in place any longer.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's really amazing. And um, for the leaders who want to go deeper, find Brimstone Coaching Group, the book, the podcast, or explore working with you directly, then where should they go?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So we do have a website. It's brimstonecoachinggroup.com. It's brimstone with an M, BRIM, stone coachinggroup.com.
Mhm.
We understand this, that we have a very particular philosophy in coaching. And what we do is we want to see if our philosophy is a match for what the leaders are
Mhm.
feeling. So we offer a free inquiry call for every leader who wants to know a little more about what we do and how we do it, just to see if it's a
Mhm.
good match. If it's a good match, we'd love to work with people. If it's not a good match, we understand that too. But our book is also available on that website as well. On the top of the banner, there's a clickable button that says "New Book Order." We're just so excited about the book, and I think what the book does is it gives people a glimpse of who we are and how we coach and how we think about this work without having to invest a lot of time into a coaching relationship to see if it's going to work. So we would love for people to check out the website and the book to get a little better glimpse of who we are and how we coach.
Amazing. Amazing. So, um, dear listeners, all of that goes into the show notes. Go find Kurt, read the book, listen to the podcast, and if something in today's conversation stirred something in you, please don't let it settle back down too quickly. That's stirring is information, I would say. And Kurt, this was such a genuinely important conversation, and thank you so much for doing this. I would say the inner work yourself that so that I mean you can hold it for others. So that's really lovely,
Yeah, thanks, Avik. It was a pleasure to be here.
amazing. And dear listeners, like if you are or to every leader, professional, or the human being who stayed with us, or maybe you'll be listening later also, you are not the uh, performance you have been giving. Underneath the title, the results, the reputations you have been carefully tending, there is a real person who deserves to be known, including by themselves. So that is not a weakness, I would say. That is the beginning of everything that actually matters. So come back to Healthy Man, Healthy Life every week because this is the space we hold for exactly this work. And until next time, this is your host Avik, and this is Healthy Man, Healthy Life. Be honest with yourself, even just a little. It's enough to start. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.